must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It is 2 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu. And of course, on the show, I get to bring you the latest from the continent of Africa. I trust that your day is coming up. Well, good morning, good evening, depending on where you were tuned in today. And we'll just get into it. And we start with South Africa, where South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma has failed to appear at the High Court in Pietermaritzburg for the resumption of his corruption trial. His lawyer has told the judge that Mr. Zuma could not attend for medical reasons. He is facing 16 counts of fraud and racketeering related to an arms deal in the 1990s. Mr. Zuma denies the charges, insisting they are politically motivated. The 79-year-old is already serving a 15-month sentence for failing to testify in a separate corruption inquiry. He was recently granted medical parole and is recovering from surgery. His arrest sparked a wave of violence in which more than 300 people were killed. And then we head over to Sudan, which I think is the breaking news in the continent. And the Sudan's cabinet has reported that the situation in the country is under control after a failed coup attempt. State news agency SUNA has reported. Those involved in the coup bid had been detained and are being investigated, it added. Several coup attempts have taken place in Sudan since Omar al-Bashir was removed from power in 2019 and the military took over. Critics claim the current security lapses in parts of the country are an attempt by the military to obstruct the transfer of the leadership of the powerful Sovereign Council to civilians. The transfer is scheduled for November. There seems to be an increased presence of the military in Sudan's capital Khartoum and neighboring Omdurman city following reports of the attempted coup. Footage shared on social media shows tanks deployed on the streets and soldiers on ground. A government official says there has been an attempt to take control of state radio in Omdurman. State media has also blamed elements loyal to the former President Omar al-Bashir for the attempted coup. And then we head over to Egypt, where the former commander-in-chief of the Egyptian Armed Forces, Field Marshal Mohammed Hussein Tantawi, has died. He was 85 years old. Following the ousting of the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in 2001, Mr. Tantawi became the de facto head of state until the inauguration of Mohamed Morsi as President of Egypt 16 months later. He continued to serve in the government until August 2012. We go to Burundi, where at least 3 people have been killed and dozens injured in a series of explosions in Burundi's economic capital, Bujumbura, reports say. Witnesses said at least 2 grenades exploded in a bus parking area, causing panic. A third explosion targeted a market, and a 4th grenade exploded near a packed bus in suburbs. It comes a day after a deadly grenade explosion in a bar in the Burundian capital, Gitega, a mortar attack at Bujumbura airport on Saturday, with the rebel group Red Tabara said it carried out the attacks. We head over to Somalia, and the United States has urged Somalia's president and prime minister to resolve their differences for the sake of the stability of the country. It said the cooperation of Somalia's leaders, especially President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and Prime Minister Hussein Roble, were essential for the country to quickly complete its ongoing electoral process. The dispute between the two leaders, sparked by the government's handling of the missing spies case, has raised fears that Somalia's electoral process could suffer further setbacks. The row escalated last week after the president suspended the executive power of Mr. Roble, a move swiftly rejected by the premier as unlawful. The Horn of African nation is scheduled to hold indirect parliamentary election between 1st October to 25th of November. The U.S. says that any further delay may increase the potential for violence and plays into the hands of Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups seeking to destabilize the country. And we head over to Equatorial Guinea, and the U.S. Justice Department says that $26.6 million seized from Equatorial Guinea's Vice President Teodorin Nguema Obiang Mangue will be spent on COVID vaccines and other medical programs in the West African state. Obiang was forced to sell a mansion in Malibu, California, a Ferrari and various Michael Jackson memorabilia as part of a settlement he reached with the U.S. authorities in 2014 after being accused of corruption and money laundering. He denied the charges. The agreement stated that $10.3 million of the money from the sale will be forfeited to the U.S. and the rest will be distributed to a charity or other organization for the benefit of the people of Equatorial Guinea, the Justice Department has said. Pardon me. Now, the UN is to receive $19.25 million to purchase and administer COVID vaccines to at least 600,000 people in Equatorial Guinea, while a US-based charity is to get $6.35 million for other medical programs in Equatorial Guinea. And then we go to Rwanda, where Paul Rusesabagina, the subject of Oscar-nominated film Hotel Rwanda, portraying his life-saving actions during the Rwandan genocide, has been sentenced to 25 years in prison. A court in Rwanda found him guilty of terror-related crimes. He boycotted the trial and did not leave prison to attend the court. Rusesabagina was accused of being the mastermind and financier of a rebel group that carried out attacks in Rwanda in 2018, killing 9 people. The strong critic of President Paul Kagame admitted sending money to the armed group but denied involvement in the attacks. Rusesabagina's family has described the entire trial as a sham. And then we go to South Sudan, where the number of people affected by flash floods in this country has reportedly risen to around 426,000 on Wednesday last week. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or UNOCHA, estimated that 380,000 people had been displaced by the water since May. It pointed out Jonglei and Unity States, Northern Bahr el Ghazal, and Upper Nile in that order as the most affected states. Photographs circulating on social media shows houses, schools, and churches submerged in flood waters, with people sheltering on few higher grounds. According to the latest United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report issued this morning, the vulnerable people need food assistance, emergency shelter, and non-food items such as water, sanitation and hygiene services, and hygiene kits. And then we end with Nigeria, where Aloy Ejimakor, and that is the special counsel for the detained leader of the proscribed group of indigenous people, Biafra Nnamdi Kanu, has expressed confidence that his client would emerge victorious against the federal government as the High Court of Abia State resumes hearing of the case today. The lawyer, who stated that this in a chat with one of the media houses in Nigeria on Monday, said the case of Kanu was similar to that of Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Adeyemo, aka Sunday Igboho. Ejimakor said the September 17th judgment of an Oyo State High Court, which awarded, amongst others, 20 billion nairas in damages against the Department of State Services for the invasion of Igboho's Ibadan residence and destruction of his property, was instructive that his client would secure victory before Justice KCJ Okereke of the High Court of Abia State today. Kanu, through his lawyer on September 7th, asked the court to award him 5 billion naira as damages for the breach of his fundamental human rights, which began with the 2017 extrajudicial attempt on his life in Abia, his involuntary fight to safety, exile, his abduction in Kenya, and his extradition to Nigeria. Ejimakor had asked the court to declare that the arrest, torture, and detention of Kanu was unconstitutional. All right, so that is the latest from Africa this afternoon. Before we get into the attempted coup in Sudan, yesterday I was giving you the update of Paul Rusesabagina, the Hotel Rwanda hero in Rwanda, and I think the last we were talking about it, he had just been found guilty of these charges, terror charges, and so they had not spelled out the sentence. So I think this was done later. And from what I'm learning from the story is that Rusesabagina refused to appear personally in court, and so he did that. He boycotted the trial. and did not leave prison to attend the court session, which of course the family has come out and said the trial wasn't fair. Even in the manner in which it took place, there was not justice that was going to be meted on Paul Rusesabagina. So anyway, when we talked yesterday, we did not know what the charges had been confirmed, all right, but we did not know what the terms of the sentencing were, and now we're learning that he's been given 25 years in prison. So I don't know if he is planning to, appeal this case or what will happen there. And so remember, is it last week? Last week, Rwanda was to send its special, its consulate to its ambassador to UK, a new one to the UK, and there was protest and letters written to the Secretary of Home Affairs. I think he's been removed from that office. I think when the Prime Minister was reshuffling his cabinet last week in the UK, he removed him, I think Raab or somebody. And so they were protesting and they were asking some NGOs and some groups in the UK were saying they should not accept this new ambassador to Rwanda in the UK because he was involved in the illegal capturing and introduction, now whatever has been happening to Paul Rusesabagina in Rwanda, he was part and parcel of it. And so they're saying he should not be allowed to come and represent Rwanda in London. I don't know how that went because the last we checked was removed from that office. So perhaps the new CS Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. Maybe we'll look into it. I'm not sure. But now Paul Rusesabagina has been handed 25 years in jail. So we're waiting to see if at all his legal team will, appeal this sentencing and see if they get a lesser sentence or even if, I don't know, he's been charged with terror-related crimes, and these we know are very serious crimes, especially in a country like Rwanda. So even appealing that and getting that overturned, I think that will be a daunting task. But we are yet to hear from his, legal team. So perhaps that is something that they're planning to do. We shall look and see how they move forward from this. But Paul Rusesabagina has been given 25 years in prison. Now let's get into the coup in Sudan. To be honest with you, I'm not really surprised that this happened. I think there has been, and if you follow this show and you watch, I think we talk about Sudan every now and then with the current happenings in Sudan. The country is supposed to be going to its election, and I think next year the transitional government is in its second year, which will be ending, I think, in August next year. So they're 2 years in. And from what I've been telling you on the show, and because of the information I've been getting from Sudan, the military side of the transitional government, they've been very high-handed. And we've seen a lot of, leaders from the civilian side even leave government. Sudan right now has a transitional government that is composed of the civilian side, led by Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, and the military side, all right? And so the military has been the one very high-handed. Remember when Omar al-Bashir was the president of Sudan? Sudan was basically a militarized country, so that is how it was ran, and that is how a lot of these generals, were used to. So for them to see civilians trying to push back on some of the things they're trying to do, or some of the ideas, or some of the ways in which they want to run the country, that is something that they've not been very welcoming, towards. And so there has been cases where the civilian side has been frustrated a lot of times and just backed away, and we've seen key figures even resigning from their positions. So this already has spelled a bit of, doom when it comes to this transitional government in Sudan, and that was message enough that things were not okay in Sudan. So I'm not really surprised that an attempted coup happened, because this is not the first attempted coup that happened. There's another one that happened, was it sometimes back last year, if I'm not wrong. If not, then I think last year, yes. There's another attempted coup that did not see the light of day. All right, so there are information that seeks to suggest that perhaps, the military side or remnants that are loyal to the former president Omar al-Bashir, which I think a lot of the military leaders that are right now even part of the transitional government all of these people served in the government of Omar al-Bashir. So to some extent, I think they owe a lot of their loyalty to Omar al-Bashir, if you know what I mean. And so apparently, this is blamed on some soldiers that are loyal to former President Omar al-Bashir, and so they were attempting to overthrow the current regime and the current leadership that is of the transitional government. And that is because we know Sudan has expressed its willingness to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC. And I've told you here before, I think we've talked about it, even when we have these conversations with Dr. David Matangon or subsequent shows. There's no way the army, first of all, will agree to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC because he's being charged there by very, crimes crimes against humanity, the things that happen in Darfur. And we know very well what the army of Sudan did through the, now it's called the Rapid Military Force, but we know it was called Janjaweed, but now they've changed the name. And the head of that very deadly terror military outfit, that's what I call it, is still part of the transitional, council. His name is Hemedi Dagalo. All right, so he's the second in command in the military side, and he is part of that government. So if you're going to sue Omar al-Bashir at the ICC, that means Dagalo will have to come along, and the other person, and a lot of generals, that in Sudan right now. So that has always been a bone of contention. So I think it is the civilian side who are pushing really for Omar al-Bashir to be handed over to the ICC, because now this would come with other benefits. We know Sudan has been put on the list of a country that has been supporting terrorism, on the blacklist since the early 90s. That's after it was discovered that the former Al-Qaeda leader, Osama bin Laden, was hiding in Sudan, in 1993. So Sudan has been on that list for a long time, and that really affected Sudan. So during the last days of former president of the US, number 45, Donald Trump, I think they got into talks with Sudan, and Sudan, after now this new regime came into power, they're really trying to be on good diplomatic terms with the international communities and other bodies, so that Sudan can be seen to be moving in a different direction. So it was important for this new regime to make amends with certain institutions, and some of the conditions that were put forth by a country like the US for Sudan to be removed from the list of countries that are supporting terrorism is, one, could you agree to hand us over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC? And as we speak, we know that the new guy at the International Criminal Court even visited Sudan the other time, and they're setting base in Sudan because they're trying to look for new information to build up their case against Omar al-Bashir. And so chief prosecutor of the ICC, the chief prosecutor, the new chief prosecutor. So that did not sit very well, I'm sure, with the military side of the leadership in the country. So they feel, okay, if we don't do something very, very quickly, maybe cause some instability in this country, for instance, then we might find ourselves handed over to the ICC, because Omar al-Bashir is not going down by himself. He's coming along. All these generals will be with him. I can assure you of that when they go. Because right now, Omar al-Bashir has nothing to lose. You just need to put him on a podium and tell him, okay, go, what happened? And he will speak, because at this point, what else can you do to a man who was the former president for 30 years? We've seen him being humiliated, being put in a cage, in a court, and going through the most harrowing ordeals. At this point, he has nothing to lose, really. He will spit out, he will talk. So they're worried. I'm sure the military council is worried very much. So, a top government source said the plotters had attempted to take over the state media building, but they failed. A senior military source said a group of officers were involved in the attempt, but were immediately suspended. It was reported that tanks moved in front of the military hospital in Omdurman and closed the road towards the old Omdurman bridge next to the Sudanese parliament amid a heavy deployment of military forces in the area. Sources say that the coup attempt was planned to launch in more than one area of the capital, Khartoum. Traffic appeared to be flowing smoothly, that is earlier today, including around army headquarters. 3 months of mass protest prompted the ouster of veteran President Omar al-Bashir in the palace. We saw that happening in 2009. After the ouster of a former Algerian strongman, the one I was telling you about, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, who was buried on Sunday, and his burial was not, fanfare was not part of it. He had ruled Algeria for 20 years, and Algerians had gotten tired of him because, remember, he changed the constitution 2 times, to run for an illegal 3rd term and then to run for another 4th term. And he tried to change the constitution in 2019 to allow him to run for another time, the 5th term. And Algeria said, "No, we've had enough." And so Abdelaziz Bouteflika was the first one to be removed, I think earlier April 2019, and then shortly Omar al-Bashir was removed after that. When the people of Algeria were protesting, so Sudanese were also protesting, but theirs had started earlier, I think in 2018, towards the end of the year, over bread and some other essential items that the prices had gone up, and so the people are complaining, and slowly this culminated into a removal of Omar al-Bashir. But we saw some other players coming in, and of course a country like Saudi Arabia, UAE, they are greatly mentioned in the events that led to the ousting of Omar al-Bashir. They took advantage of what was happening and they came in with the agenda, and Omar al-Bashir was out because it is allegedly they supported and funded that coup. So now, in a comment posted on his Facebook account, that is Mohammed Al-Faki Suleiman, a member of the Sudanese Sovereign Council and official spokesperson for the council, said that run to defend your country and protect the transition. That is the transition government. That is what he posted earlier. And then after a while, he returned and added in a later comment, things are under control and the revolution is victorious. He also confirmed that the state would interrogate suspect behind the coup attempt shortly, adding that a statement should be issued by the army. And what is that? Now, observers believe that the coup attempt is closely related to the tension that is taking place in the states of Eastern Sudan. Some areas in the region, including the states of the Red Sea, Kassala, Gedaref, witnessed tensions and clashes after some tribes rejected the peace agreement. There has been some peace agreement that has been mediated by South Sudan President Salva Kiir, who has been trying to bring rebels together in these different areas that I've mentioned there, to sit on the table and just try to talk to the government. And so far, President Salva Kiir seems to have really succeeded in doing that. And so apparently there are some sections or some tribes that are not happy with these peace agreements that some sections of other communities have been making and concessions they've been making with the government. And so that has led to a build-up of tension that has led to some clashes that has been being witnessed in some parts of Sudan. So yesterday, protesters closed the country's main port on the Red Sea again, and the road linking Port Sudan with the rest of the country's states in protest against the peace agreement signed by the government last year. It is noteworthy that in October 2020, the Sudanese Transitional Government signed a historic peace agreement in Juba, South Sudan, with a number of movements that took up arms during the era of former President Omar al-Bashir, and that is the peace talks that I've told you here before. President Salva Kiir has been mediating. That has largely been successful. Now, in the same month after the signing, the Beja tribes in the east of the country, considered one of the poorest parts of Sudan, protested and closed Port Sudan for several days, protesting their exclusion from the deal. I think that is just one aspect of what could have, led to this attempted coup, but also we cannot rule out the fact that, some other military, men that are allied to former president also could say to have been a part of the ones who participated in this attempted coup in South Sudan. So we shall see how that will work out there in Sudan. You're waiting for more details. Bismarck Buri is saying when the military tastes political power, then they can change power from time to time. I'll tell you that. And the deadline for the transitional government before Sudan fully, transits to a civilian rule is quickly coming, and the military, I'm sure, is not very happy, and so I think they have to create any manner of, upheaval or instability in the country, so that maybe elections do not happen, like you've seen in Somalia and South Sudan. They know how to keep doing whatever they're doing, so that they keep the country in a never-ending cycle where elections never really take place. I think this could be one aspect also of what is really happening. The military have tasted power, Bismarck Bura, that is true, and now they're thinking, can we trust the civilian side? Should we exit and go back to the barracks and leave Sudan fully to the rulership of a civilian government? Can we really trust? Because they really don't know what that looks like. Remember, as I said, Omar al-Bashir led by the military. Sudan was a militarized country for 30 years. That's all they knew, and even before that. So now, having a civilian government, that is something that they don't know, where the military will just sit in the barracks and just protect the borders and the people from afar. They don't know what that will look like, because in Sudan, the military was part and parcel of the running day-to-day of the Sudan state. So this is a new position they find themselves in, and it is a dilemma that they're struggling to see what will the post-transitional government look like for them, and what will be their role in Sudan. So I think that is the quagmire. And also the issue of ICC. Omar al-Bashir is a loose cannon right now, has nothing to lose. He's not bringing any prisoners, so he will say what he needs to say to save his skin. And if anything, the ICC jail is much comfortable compared to perhaps where he is right now in that notorious jail in Khartoum. So that is also another thing that we have to think about when we look at the Sudan story. So I shall continue bringing you the latest and let you know what is happening and the developments there in Sudan. So, so KANU'S case has started in Nigeria. So I'll be back here tomorrow to let you know what is happening. Remember, he had sued the government of Nigeria, and he wanted to be compensated 5 billion naira for damages and the breach of his fundamental human rights, which began in 2017, extrajudicial attempt to his life in Abia. So he's suing the government of Nigeria. No, I think he's suing the person of President Muhammadu Buhari and the state of Nigeria, I think. So I'll let you know how that ruling will go today. It's happening there in the court in Nigeria. Very well. So Somalia. The United States very quickly has urged Somalia's president and prime minister to resolve their differences, because the United States is saying if you continue bickering like this and this back and forth, it's not helpful for the country, and it's going to affect the stability of Somalia. Like, do they not know that already? But I think they benefit like that, especially President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. This president is not serious about having elections in Somalia, okay? He does not want to leave power, because most likely maybe the people in Somalia, right now they don't have the direct elections. But the process is there's a selection. It's a whole process. I can't even explain it right now, all right? So it's an indirect election where certain officials are selected, and then after that, the people who have been selected from the clans and the villages and whatnot, they go and select, it's a selection process, right? What is termed as an indirect election, because Somalia was supposed to have its first direct election earlier this year in February. That did not take place because President Abdullahi Farmajo, I think, made sure that did not take place. Now I'm believe that Farmajo is not committed to having a transition in Somalia. All right. And the recent bickering between him and his prime minister. And remember, he also fired that other prime minister. And so who is the problem? Who is the common denominator here? So the U.S. is saying you have to put aside these non-issues because we need Somalia to be in a path of stability, and we need the country to have its election so that it is assured of its stability moving forward. And if you keep bickering like this, you'll give groups like Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups, an opportunity to just come in and continue, matting the country with violence like we've seen in the recent past. So they're saying because the elections are scheduled between 1st October and 25th November. And so I think at this point they have to do whatever they can to ensure that these elections don't happen. So the U.S. is saying we have to stay focused, because we have to have those elections right now, and we can't keep postponing them. And let's wait and see if that at all will happen. All right, so we'll see how that will happen there. And in Somalia. So that is all we had time for today this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Ogutu. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.